Hi, I'm Maaike Bakker. I'm the head of school for visual communication, and I've been a lecturer at Open Window for about 10 to 11 years, more or less. Yeah, I enjoy working at Open Window because it's good to have creative energy around you. It's nice to be working with people, creative colleagues, creative students, and yeah, that's that. So Open Window's always sort of been on my radar. I had a lot of friends that studied at Open Window, and often they would sort of show their projects to me, and this always made me quite curious about Open Window, so often I'd also join some events and so on. And whenever I saw student work, I thought, yeah, I was quite excited by what was happening here. And then a few years later, at some point, there was an illustration part-time lecturer position that opened, and yeah, here I am. So that's it in short. The School of Visual Communication has 3 subjects, so these are photography, illustration and communication design. And all these 3 subjects really elevate each other quite nicely. A lot of our students also as a result end up taking double majors due to that. So in general, the main focus of the VC subjects, or one thing that they've got in common is we sort of have our students experiment a lot. Also, we place a lot of emphasis on refinement and good sort of craft skills, but also on achieving a strong sense of conceptual clarity in the work. So all the subjects essentially are focused on articulating messages through visual means. So like I said, whether illustration or communication design or photography, one thing that makes photography at Open Window quite unique is the students have the opportunity to go on a lot of workshops, so they get a good exposure to different scenarios. They also learn to use the photography studio and become sort of quite skilled at using all the equipment that relates to it. We also, at communication design, focuses on branding, advertising, packaging, layout design. So it's all about design application and digital design applications across different platforms. Illustration is all about storytelling as well. In illustration, the students really are encouraged to harness their imagination. It's about exploring different mediums and styles and sort of techniques. And yeah, in short, the students are also encouraged to experiment a lot. It's about generating their own sort of voice within their work. In total, I would say all the VC subjects, what's super important to us is to have students that have creative confidence, that understand how to develop strong concepts, but also, like I said, have strong refinement skills, and ultimately that also aren't scared to experiment and try different things within their work. We've observed that the VC alumni, they follow different career trajectories. Often we've got students that start working at a small agency or at an agency and then veer off to do their own thing. So a lot of our alumni has sort of gone off to start their own businesses, which is quite exciting. A lot of students also end up freelancing and make a contribution to the creative industry in that way. Alternatively, many work for smaller studios as well, some for larger agencies, so it's quite diverse. I think in general what we're quite proud of though is that the students, they've sort of made great contributions to the creative industry in South Africa, so that's exciting. And there are a lot of sort of heavyweights out there that have made us proud. Yeah, it's quite important to stay up to date with what's happening in the industry. I think it's important to not just look on social media. I think one needs to look at what different studios are doing whose work you enjoy. Also read about what the project is about. Don't just look at the work, understand the context of how the work was developed. Yeah, so beyond following different studios, I do have certain sites that I like following, such as It's Nice that they cover photography, illustration and communication design, amongst other things. Also, we've got great sort of magazines and books in the library, so luckily I've got access to those. There's a magazine called Elephant Magazine that also covers sort of new developments in the field of visual communication. That's quite exciting. So yeah, so those are some of the main ones. But as mentioned, I think also just following creatives in industry, trying to stay up to date with that, going to events, exhibitions, things like that. So exposing yourself to as much work as possible, but not just looking at the work, but also understanding what it was made for, who it was made for, and what the backstory is. At Open Window, obviously, the balance between technical skills and critical thinking is very important. And this is something we take into consideration from first year all the way up to third year and into honours. So first year, generally, we start with, a strong skills focus. Students have to understand sort of the basic or obtain a basic overview of the particular field. They sort of learn to hone or develop certain skills relating to that field or subject. Second year, it's more about creative application of those skills, applying those skills to different problems. So their conceptual thinking is falling into place a little bit more. And this is then taken further by sort of creating space where students get to experiment a little bit more, different scenarios where skills can be applied, and also sort of encouraging students to then take their sort of conceptual thinking and develop their own signature style within their work. So to also bring their identity to the work that they create. And that is mostly sort of a focus in third year. Honours is also very much about critical thinking. So there you really sort of reach the height of that. All in all, I think it's about sort of how our lecturers teach the subject. So you always have to consider why you're doing what you're doing. It can't just look interesting. It needs to have a backstory, and it needs to be meaningful to other people. So there needs to be thinking or clear thinking behind the work as well. Personal projects. So I also enjoy working as a visual artist, and I also work as an illustrator in a more commercial capacity. So last year I had the opportunity to develop a body of work or monotype prints with David Craft project. So that was exciting. It resulted in a solo exhibition. And there I was afforded the space just to try different things. I worked with the David Craft team. They sort of guided me. It was more of a collaboration, I suppose. And I had complete sort of creative freedom to do what I wanted. That was a highlight, and I also had the opportunity to work on a Nedbank campaign recently. This was also an exciting project, tight deadlines, but a lot of freedom to explore the brief in my own way. And yeah, those were sort of the most recent highlights. The Nedbank project is more of a commercial application, but and the printmaking, I suppose, more of a creative exploration, but all in all, a good balance. Okay, so yeah, top 5 bands that I'm listening to at the moment, or 5 musicians I like. Yeah, this is a tough one because I'm a big music fan. I would say Fever Ray, Yves Tumor, Low, Tim Hecker, and what's my number 5? Shame. Top 3 podcasts. So lately I've been listening to a podcast called Bandsplain. So this is quite interesting because you get sort of background from some alternative bands, sort of how they were formed, how their music developed, why it developed in a certain way. So that's quite interesting. I've also been listening to a New Yorker podcast, Rabbit Hole, which is all about what the internet's doing to us. So also a heavy but interesting listen. And then I also enjoy a podcast called Was mit Kunst, which is all about art, and it's a gallerist, Johan Koenig, who's interviewing contemporary artists. So yeah, those are the latest ones. Adobe, our students have Adobe licenses, so through that there's access to a lot of great things. The Carl T. Webster brushes, which you can access on Adobe's site. Obviously Adobe fonts are wonderful. I think the students use those in any case. And beyond that, also through having an Adobe license, you've got access to Adobe Portfolio, which is an exciting way to showcase your work and makes this very easy. Yeah, beyond that, I think True Grit also has some exciting free downloads, good textures, brushes, all of that. So those are worth looking into. My go-to creative snack, so definitely blueberries. I always like to dig into some blueberries when I'm working on something, and the mustard pretzel snack from Woolworths, that's also an all-time favorite. Yeah, I love going for dog walks. I also enjoy a bit of hiking here and there. I love reading fiction, and art making and illustrating. I don't know if those are hobbies so much because they're sort of a bit more than that to me, but in short, that's pretty much it. One of the main things that we're looking into is how we can make use of the open window makerspace a little bit more. I think there's a lot of exciting equipment that we can make use of to bring more play and experimentation into the work. So that is a big focus going forward. beyond that, there's also an exciting new development which isn't sort of limited to VC students, but all sort of students, or relates to all students. So we've got a postgraduate diploma that we'll start offering soon. And here students will have the opportunity to complete a 4th year. This is a different qualification from honors. It's more sort of portfolio focused. Students will get to develop their portfolios. They'll get to sort of hone their skills a little bit more. They get to acquire new skills as well. And thereby also develop their creative confidence. So that's also an exciting development, but one across the board. I think some good tips for students that are looking into doing a BC degree is, firstly, there's a lot of competition out there. I think the creative industry in general, there's a lot of competition, but the exciting thing is if you know that this is what you want to do, commit to it and invest all the time and energy into it. Don't look at what other people are doing. Don't compare yourself to or don't compare your work to that of others, but just do as much as you can. Don't be scared to sort of play and experiment. And as you do that, you'll see that your work will develop a lot. So I think also it's important to keep in mind that inspiration is not, one shouldn't sit around waiting for inspiration, just be disciplined and work consistently. I think those are important facts.